So I'm going to try and get to these really quickly before the show's over. We got Mark in Rhode Island. You're on with Jim and Matt, and you say that you can be justified in believing that a miracle is the explanation for an event. So let us have it.
Sure. So I guess first I want to start off by asking a question to you. Do you think one can ever be justified in attributing a miracle as the explanation of an event?
Define miracle, supernatural in origin, or just unusual, or what?
I would say supernatural in origin. So something.
Sure, it's easy, Mark. Until somebody demonstrates that the supernatural exists and can, in fact, interact with the natural world, you are not justified in appealing to that as a potential explanation.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So science is the project of, developing hypotheses and testing them to investigate how. Also, I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little wavery. I'm a little nervous. To investigate how the world works. So. But it seems to me that if something beyond the natural world that could stand in causal relation to an event in the world exists, so obviously you don't believe it does. We're just completely hypothetically, right?
I'm going to keep going.
If that something existed, then it would not be explicable through normal science, because if it was, then the event would just be natural and not supernatural. So It seems like people. Oh, okay. So I guess where am I wrong?
So if there's something supernatural, sure, that's where you went wrong, because you are inferring something about something that you have no evidence for. You don't know what is supernatural. You don't know what its limits are.
No.
No, stop. Let me finish my sentence. To say X is supernatural, you can't tell me anything about it. And yet you're trying to, by saying that if X is supernatural, then there can't be a natural explanation for it. But there's no way to demonstrate that there cannot be a natural explanation. The only thing we can ever do is show that there's not currently a natural explanation. So you're hiding a big argument from ignorance fallacy in this model. My position is really simple. Before we get to use the supernatural as a potential candidate explanation for an observation, we must first demonstrate that the supernatural exists and could be a potential explanation for it. Why you don't get to suggest a candidate explanation without demonstrating how and why it is a candidate. And you can't do that. You can't even tell me that if something is supernatural, then there's not a plausible natural explanation for it, because it could be both.
No, I agree that there could be both plausible natural and supernatural explanations, but I feel like I may have misstated something. So
okay.
It sounds like when a lot of people are describing what they would expect to see as evidence for a supernatural thing, and again, for the sake of this, we can all be naturalists. This is all just a hypothetical thought experiment. I'm not attributing a supernatural cause to any particular event. For the sake of this phone call, we can all be naturalists for the thought experiment. But it seems like if hypothetically it could, and again, for the sake of the conversation, we can say it can't.
Can we skip all the qualifiers, because we are over time and there's still 2 callers waiting. So if we can just get to it and not keep putting in the qualifiers.
Okay, fair. It seems like you're expecting the amount of evidence you would expect for investigating a natural claim for a supernatural claim. Whereas if it could, which again we don't know if it could, if it could, it seems like it would appear as a gap in our knowledge as opposed to something we were test. So
that is an ad hoc, unsupported assertion. First, I'm not expecting any more evidence or whatever else. I just want somebody to demonstrate. It's going to take whatever evidence that it takes to demonstrate it. The fact that nobody's ever demonstrated anything supernatural, that nobody's ever made a connection to anything supernatural, is, I think, fairly telling. However, that's where we're stuck. And until that changes, you don't get to peel. It's like you're trying to claim that I have what appears to be a 6-sided die. And so when we calculate the possibility of me rolling a 6, it's 1 in 6. But it's almost like you're saying, hang on a minute, what if there's a 7th side to that die and you can't see it? That's the type of thing that you're actually doing. And the time for me to believe there's a 7th side on that die is when you demonstrate it. And I don't get to appeal to the 7th side as an explanation until it's demonstrated as a candidate explanation. The supernatural is not a candidate explanation currently. It's not a problem. That's not a problem with science. That's not a problem with me. That's not a problem with epistemology. That is a problem with the supernatural. As soon as somebody demonstrates that the supernatural can and should be considered a candidate explanation, I will accept it as one, and not 1 minute earlier.
Okay, so let me pose this example. Suppose there's a supernatural being that caused the random formation of rain clouds in the sky when that otherwise would not have happened. Then, so when if say scientists were going to investigate that event, we could investigate what happened. So obviously we can map, for example,
you can come up with 1,000 examples that are going to keep us from identifying your hypothetical, but all I want is one example that will actually identify your hypothetical.
No,
why are we wasting time on all the ways we can't prove the supernatural? Fucking prove it.
No. But the point I'm trying to get at, and I'm likely phrasing it quite poorly, is that what you are considering proof, for the nature of a supernatural event,
how do you know what the nature of the supernatural event is?
Exactly. Answer Jim's.
How do you know what the nature of supernatural is? How do you know what the nature of the supernatural event is? How do you know what that nature is if nobody's ever investigated or we can't investigate it?
Okay, so I agree with you. I'm not even at that. I'm not even.
That's not an answer to the question. That's not an answer. Agreeing with me is not answering the question.
Okay. Could you restate it one more time? I'm sorry.
How do you know what the nature of the supernatural event is?
What is the nature of the supernatural? How did you determine that?
No. So my point is that
that's not an answer to the question.
Goodbye. I'm not wasting the after show time on this.